welcome back. I'm so glad that you're joining me here today. Today, we're taking a little turn on the channel. So, for our loyal, faithful followers who've been listening to all of our episodes, we're kind of moving out of personal stuff and moving into the world of business. So, I kind of just go with what feels right. I don't have any crazy map or content manager. I just follow my, internal knowing, my gut or intuition about what it is we're going to talk about on the podcast each week. So, today's episode is going from side gig to self-employed. And I know that there is so many of you out there who have side gigs. And here is how I know, because I use my notes here. All right. So I was doing a little research for the content today. And according to business coach Louisa Zhao, 34% or 1 in 3 Americans have a side gig. But a quick Google will tell you that like one website will say 50%, one website will say 80%. So regardless, there's a lot of us out there with a side gig, right? Side hustlers who dedicate 12 hours or more per week in their business earn a median, mean, medium, mode. Remember that one? Mean, medium, mode. Like, I feel like it's like 7th grade math. They earn a median of $1,122 a month. I mean, that's over 12 grand a year. That's like $13,000 a year, which is epic for a family. Almost 50% of the people that have a side hustle do it because they want to, not because of financial constraints, which means these side hustles are passion projects that we are turning into revenue generating engines that can totally change the trajectory of our lives, of our family, of generations to come. And then 50% of millennials, whoop, whoop, I'm a millennial girl here, barely, like I'm barely a millennial. Like I'm almost too old for that group, but which is like our 1981 to 1995 people. So 50% of millennials have a side hustle. And 70% of Gen Zers, so those are the people that are a little bit younger than me, maybe some of my listeners. So that's our 1995 to 2012 people. 70% have a side gig or a side hustle, which those words are like pretty much interchangeable in my mind. So if I have that wrong, like drop me a comment or shoot me a message and let me know. But I kind of look at the side hustle, side gig as the same thing. So if I use those terms interchangeably, just follow me because my brain's thinking like the exact same thing. And then this is the most like mind-blowing statistic of all. And I'm almost done with my side gig statistics, but I totally geeked out when I started looking into this because I couldn't believe that side gigs have a $2.58 trillion market value in the United States alone. Are you kidding me? Like that is so big. And so that shows me, and should show everyone else too, right? That literally these side gigs and side hustles, if we got rid of all of them, would completely change the dynamics of our economy in the US and across the world. And 83% of Americans will perform gig work by 2027. 83% of us. So the question there lies is how many of these side gigs will become self-employed or turn it into their everyday job? And knowing that 50% of these people are doing it just for fun, and that is not maybe their actual goal. So not everybody that has a side gig wants to become self-employed. There are people that do, and then there are people that just love seeing literally from rags to riches or beginnings to coming up stories, of people evolving from their garage, hello, right here, into actually being able to have and run and, employ amazing people, a company that you're proud of. And so today, as we dive in, I'm going to tell you my story of how I went from side gig to self-employed, starting with $250 to now over $9 million in revenue 9 years later. Okay. Before we get started, we're going to do our trivia in the trenches. And I really like this one today. So if you're new on the channel, welcome for the first time. Or new listener to the podcast, we put this on YouTube and on all the podcast platforms. So if you like what you hear today, be sure you subscribe to us or like or leave us a review. It really helps us in those algorithm methods and helps us to build our community of grit crusaders like you. So for today's trivia, here we go. What does the Roman numeral L stand for? Dun, 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 dun. You probably know like the I and the B and the X. 50. I didn't know that. Maybe you knew that. If you knew that, drop a comment. So did you know this though? There are 7 basic Roman numeral symbols. So we have the I, the V, the X, the L, the C, which is 100, the D, which is 500, and the M, which is 1,000, right? So I think that's 7. Yeah. 4 plus 3. I got my fingers up if you're listening on the podcast. And so when I was looking into this trivia, I was like, I wonder how long we've had Roman numerals. And the answer is 900 to 800 BC. So before Jesus's feet touched the earth. And then if you listen to my previous solo podcast on gray area drinking, you now know that Jesus was likely born in 4 to 6 or 6 to 4 BC. So estimate with me here, right? So between 900 and 800 BC is when they started using Roman numerals. These things have been around a long time. But as a kid, if you only had to learn 7 of them and then you just learn your addition and subtraction, like maybe that's easier than like 100 numbers like we have here, which I guess we really only have like 9 numbers in the US. And then when you start adding them together, it's the same thing as Roman numerals. So maybe it's a little more difficult. Maybe it's not. I don't know. There's your trivia in the trenches for today. Okay, so let's dive into this story of side gig to self-employed and how I turned $250 into $9 million. I still can't believe I say that. Like I actually sat down and added up revenue from 2014 to now to actually be able to give you guys an accurate number because I didn't want to be one of those people that I could easily round it up and said like 10 million or 12 million, but like we're real here, so we're going to talk about real stuff. So first of all, let's qualify this. Does taking $250 and turning it into $9 million make you a millionaire? That should have been our trivia today. Da, 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 da. The answer is no, it does not. You know why? Because I have awesome people and I pay them really well. And the cost of doing business is exorbitant and utilities and mortgages and all of those things. But what it does do is it shows you that you had something you believed in the beginning and you built it into something that you could be proud of. And so I actually started with 0. So like maybe that would make a cooler storyline. Like, I don't know, 0 to 9 million, but that just doesn't seem very believable. So the 0 was I actually started teaching cheerleading lessons in people's yards and living rooms before I went to my garage. So if you've heard my story before, you probably hear me talk about my little tiny house I had with a 2-car garage. And that's where I started teaching lessons. But it really started about 2 months before that. And I saved up the $250 so that I could buy this little 5x7 red mat. And like, y'all, I felt legit. Like I was like, I am doing this thing. And so after I got the mat, at this point, it's now December. So in Arkansas in December is like super cold. So it's December of 2013. People are coming to my garage and they are bringing their lawn chairs to sit next to an open flame propane heater. I still have it in my garage here that I borrowed from my dad. And I'm like now thinking back, like, why was I making people bring lawn chairs? Like, I mean, I know I was broke. I was single. I was a teacher. I had a house payment, a car payment. Like that was all I could deal with. But like, I should have bought some lawn chairs like at Walmart or something, right? But nope, I was letting people haul their own lawn chairs in, sit next to an open flame propane heater while we're doing cartwheels right there. Like probably not very safe, but for some reason people believed in me. And that's where it all began. And so if I'm taking that and like applying it to how do you give people advice or like lead people down this path, the advice I have to give you is keep your day job. Okay. Keep your day job. So I start teaching these lessons. A year and a half goes by before I ever actually turn in notice at my employer that I'm going to be leaving at the end of the school year, which is in 6 months. So 2 weeks notice is not enough. There's another free piece of advice. 6 months notice is what I gave them. Okay. I was a public school teacher at the time. And so I turned in my notice and wanted to make sure I was giving them ample time to actually like find someone. So there's my side note for my integrity there. But in the meantime of all that, I'm working full time. Okay. As a public school teacher, I'm coaching 2 middle school cheerleading teams through football season, through basketball season, and through competition season. I'm teaching professional development on school breaks and during the summer. And I'm finishing my postgraduate degree at the University of Central Arkansas in educational leadership. All right. So keep your day job, but then you got to go for it. Like you have to put it all in. Like if you really want to take this side gig to self-employed, you have to make sure that it's something that you truly will give up everything for. Extra sleep, weekends, friends, like your real friends will still be there. Your not real friends, let me tell you, you want to weed some not real friends out of your life, start a business, okay? because they won't be able to hang. They won't be able to understand why you don't have time to talk to them. And it's not forever, but it is for like 4 to 6 years. And so for 4 to 6 years, you're signing up for like literally you feel like the entire soul of who you are is dying because you are so tired and you are eating, breathing, and living everything to do with this baby of yours that you're trying to raise. It's just like a child. If you've ever had an infant that you're around, the people that are taking care of the infant are doing everything for them. But the people that are taking care of a 6-year-old are like making sure they get in bath on time, helping them if they fall down and bump their knee and making sure they get fed. I mean, and yeah, you're pouring into them and there's better parenting and not as better parenting. There's just the worst parenting. But it's just like a baby. Like once you can get 5 or 6 years under your belt running this business, you actually can breathe again. So there is glory. I mean, I've talked to hundreds of entrepreneurs and I don't know if there's any research articles, anything like that out there. Like maybe I should write one day, but something happens, but you have to know going in that you want it so bad that you're willing to give every bit of that up because it's going to be worth it. You're going to find joy in the journey. It's going to be hard, but there's going to be so many celebrations along the way. And so don't quit your day job. Stick with it and just start with what you know. Like I started teaching cheerleading lessons. How applicable do you think that is to the entire world? Well, it was way bigger than I thought it was, but I didn't know at the time that cheerleading was a billion-dollar industry. And so start with what you know, what you're an expert in. Like maybe it's bracelet making. Maybe it's doing lawns. Maybe it's childcare and taking care of people's kids or doing laundry. There is a huge opportunity for someone to start a huge laundry business. Trust me, you got the free tip here. I want a commission. Okay. But do what you know and build from there. Okay. You don't have to have all the answers. You don't have to have like the whole business plan written out. Like, yes. Okay. There's definitely a place for a business plan. Did I ever write one? Like, no, not until like a year ago when I had to do it to get an SBA loan. Okay. But I can't say don't do a business plan, don't do it, don't have a mission, don't have all that. You need to have all those things in place. And there are lots of websites, lots of business coaches online that can walk you through how to do those things. They are helpful. Building the processes in your business, all of that stuff is helpful. But none of it matters is if all you're doing is planning for all of that stuff and you're never actually jumping and putting yourself out there and risking literally everyone making fun of you, everyone thinking this won't work. In my own hometown, I cannot tell you how many people I grew up with that I saw every day that I was on teams with that have never given me the opportunity to serve their children. You know what? Maybe it's not a fit for them, but I can't worry about that. I have to worry about the people that God brings through our doors that we can serve. Okay. Jesus says in the Bible that a man can be a prophet anywhere but in his own hometown. So you can't rely on all the people you've known to help you make it out there one day. If this is something you want, it's your responsibility to go sell it and go do it. But if you don't quit your day job, you don't have to financially rely on the business, and it opens all of these opportunities for you to figure out how to make it work. So by the time I turned in my notice at the school that I wasn't going to be returning. So it was like a year and a half after the business actually opened. So we're 2 years from that December 13 when I had bought the mat and now I've got the open flame heater. 2 years later, January of 15 is when I'm actually, would that be a year? Be almost a year and a half later, right? Okay. So about a year later. So it was a year and a half before I actually quit the job. So I turn in the notice. And at this point now I've bought us a building. So we have like real estate with like a real payment and like a real mortgage and a real utility bills and all those things. And so then I turn in my notice and I am terrified. When I tell you butterflies, like my butterflies had turned into pterodactyls. Like it was insanity. Like I literally, oh my goodness, I cannot even tell you how scared I was to turn that notice in because I'm leaving a salary secure job. Okay. At this time in Arkansas, it was very, very hard for a teacher to get fired. If you didn't hit them or sleep with them, you were almost good. Okay. And I'm not making light of either one of those situations, but pretty much everything else teachers like got in trouble for, but they weren't getting fired if they just weren't ineffective, very often. And so I have this secure, safe job and I leave it to bet on myself. And I'll never forget it was June of 2015. I go to pick up my paycheck And like in the summer, we would have to pick up, like now everything's direct deposit. So I guess you don't have to do it, now like you did then. But then we pick up like paper pay stubs and stuff. And I remember leaving thinking, this is the only paycheck I'm ever going to get from someone else. And it felt like a self-diagnosis, like I was like now in a category of self-employed people. Like we were like this like cult walking around in like zombie land, And so like how in the world was I going to make that work? And somehow I convinced myself somebody's going to hire me. Like somebody will give me a job if this doesn't work. Like I can go be a greeter at Walmart. I can do something. Like I got work ethic. I can outwork anybody. I've got heart. I'm friendly. Like I can do something if this doesn't work out. And so sometimes we think of all the reasons why not to do something, and that holds us so far back. Like don't quit your day job, but don't be afraid to take a risk, because being out here in this entrepreneurial, self-employed land, it's risky business, y'all. It is very risky. And most businesses, they never make it out of the first 3 years. And I would venture to say one of the most viable, pieces of business advice someone's given me is if Target and Starbucks think that the area is okay, that's all you need to know. So if I'm in the service business, and so if you have a Target and Starbucks near you, and you are in a industry that relies on disposable income, which I do, so we're very like sensitive to inflationary, things happen in the economy. Target and Starbucks has already done all the research to let you know that there is enough money in that community to sustain a business in the disposable income, recreation, sports, hobbies, whatever that type of industry is. They've already done the work for you, and that's all you need to know. And that is so true. And so again, just thinking about all of the things that we get hung up on of what couldn't work, but what could work? So don't quit your day job, but don't be afraid to take risks too, because you are making the biggest bet you will ever make by betting on yourself. And I'm not saying that every person should be a business owner. I'm not saying that every person should take their side gig and make it their full-time job. Okay. I'm just sharing my experience and my journey of how I went from side gig to self-employed. So for those that do want to do that, they've got another story to reference, because you guys have heard me say this. If you've listened before over and over, the worst feeling in the world is to feel alone. And just to know that somebody else that was just a school teacher, that was just making ends meet, was able to take a small amount of money, $250, and almost 9 years later, turn it into $9 million in revenue through hard work, finding good people, treating them well, and letting them do their thing. Like that is the big crux of everything. That's something I learned from my dad on the car lot as a kid. And so yes, it's scary to bet on yourself. And yes, you might fail, but I promise you, if you do fail, you are going to learn something in the process of that. I'll tell you about a time I failed. So I started a business once. It wasn't like a business anyone would really known about, because I never actually did anything with it. But my then boyfriend, who's now my husband, and I decided that we were going to start buying inflatables, and we were going to do an inflatable rental business, and our businesses rent from this company, and other businesses would rent from us, and other people would rent for us, and we would do inflatable rentals. Well, you know what we never considered? How much an inflatable weighs. And so we bought 2 inflatables for $2,600, and we were going to make this big investment. But at the time, that was a big investment to us. Might not be a big investment to you, but it was a big investment to us. And we were gonna sell, inflatable rentals. Here we go. And we literally never even opened a bank account. I'm not even kidding you. We get these inflatables in. We bought 2 used inflatables, and one of them weighed 900 pounds. 900 pounds. Do you know how many people it takes to move a 900-pound inflatable? Between 4 and 8, and sometimes then you can't even roll it. We literally had to ask the people across the street to come and bring their little forklift, and lift it up and stuff, because we couldn't move the inflatable. And then it sat in my parking lot for 2.5. No, wait, hold on. Let me go here. So we're 2017. This is 2022. 5 years, this 900-pound inflatable sat in our parking lot because I couldn't get anyone to buy it from me because it'd been sitting outside forever. And we finally had to put it in the waste disposal. My recycling heart hurt so bad, but there was nothing else to do with it because it was rotted by this point. Business plan did not work. Never even got off the ground. All I did was lose the money. Okay. So everybody fails. And behind every success are dozens and dozens of stories of failures. There's so many times we've tried programs, they didn't work. And sometimes I just say you have to throw enough shit up against the wall to see what sticks. Okay. Because sometimes those ideas that you just don't know if they're going to work, try them, Betty. Like, go on, Karen, you got this. Like, do something. But just sitting there and thinking about it and writing a business plan and your mission and your values, and you got all these things lined out, which is great because I had none of that lined out. And now in year 9, I'm having to go back and write processes and having to redo things or do things for the first time that I should have done in the beginning and didn't really know any better because I was just going so hard and so fast. But if you have a great business plan and you don't execute it, all you have is a piece of paper with some good ideas on it. Okay. So take that and put it into action. And then if you want to become self-employed with that, go get it. Like, you can do this. I am no different. There's nothing special about me other than I can literally work harder than almost everybody in the room. And that's because of pure will, which means you can work harder than anyone else in the room too. Like, you don't have to wait on somebody else to give you permission. You don't, I'm like, and I know there's like seasons of life where things are better or worse or whatever. And for me, I started when I was 29 and single and no kids. And so at that time, I had less liability in that way. I'd also had 2 divorces and was about to have a third one because I got married after that and then divorced a year later. And so I had some baggage in different kinds of ways and different financial struggles I had through the divorces and stuff. But we all have stuff that happens. But when you want to like find a way, you got to be a find a way, make a way kind of person because those doors will shut and it's up to you to get them open. All right. So recap on what we've talked about so far. Don't quit your day job yet. You can quit it at some point. I promise you'll know when, and you'll be like almost scared, like too scared to do it. Okay. Be willing to take risk and then build your team. Like, you cannot do this alone. I can't carry a tune in a bucket. See, nobody would ask me for voice lessons. So you don't have to be good at everything. I'm not good at singing or teaching voice lessons. Case in point. And you may not be good at teaching cheerleading. No big deal. But the number one thing I can attribute a lot of the success we've had in our companies is I never tried to do it alone. And I am the first person to admit when I'm not good at something. That doesn't mean I don't need to get good at it. For example, I had never logged into QuickBooks. I had never been in an accounting software besides that one semester of accounting I had in my undergrad. Okay. I run all the financials for our nonprofit, for our co-working and event space, for our recreation business, for my real estate company, and for a childcare business. So that's 5 companies every month. I'm handling all of these financials. I've got a little bit of accounting, contractors on the side that help me with the final reconciliation and stuff like that. But everything else, it's on me. And I had never even logged into QuickBooks. If I can figure it out, so can you. This is the world of self-education. YouTube's out there. You can figure out all these things. But there is a time when you need to stop figuring out all those things. For me, I have a marketing bachelor's degree. I love marketing. I love learning all the things about marketing. I am not the best person to be doing marketing for my team. You want to know why? I don't even hardly get on TikTok. I am not in the cool club. I am not a trendsetter. I don't know what everybody's talking about. I didn't see that show. Like, I don't know because that's not the space I live in. And that's okay. But I had to know when it was time to hand off our marketing to people that were more relevant on top of it. And that was their specialty. Okay. I should not be running facilities. I just shouldn't. I can use a drill. I can build stuff. Like, I'm pretty handy, especially for a chick. I know that sounds a little sexist, but growing up in the South, mostly the guys did all that kind of stuff. But I'm not the best person to be making decisions on which contractors that we need to be using because I'm not going to follow up and ask all the questions and get all the extra quotes because I get busy and I start doing something else. So we have a great facilities department that handles all that for us. Okay. They're our employees. They love what we do. They know the importance of why we want things clean this way, and the fence has to be bolted just right so nobody leans on it and falls over or kid trips or whatever that is. So figure out what you are not good at or you don't enjoy doing, okay? And give the rest over to people who love that because that may not be your specialty, but it is somebody's specialty. Okay. There is all kinds of exercises that you can do. Michael Hyatt, with the Full Focus Company, their team has the Freedom Compass. There are all kinds of resources on the internet that you can look at. But one of the things that I learned from my friend Sarah Hare, who was my first guest on the podcast with Archie Travels, was she had learned from a coach, I think it was her coach, Gretchen. Don't mark my word, but I'm pretty sure it was. And so what she had her do is, like, over the course of like 2 or 3 weeks, she had her take like a steno pad, right? And list down everything she does at work. Okay. Everything she does. Actually, it was work and personal in this case. You could do it either way. But if you're like, entrepreneur, like work-life balance, like I really focus on, then I would do everything. If you're just trying to look at your professional role, you may want to do just professional, but like everything from like taking your dogs to the vet to doing laundry to writing payroll checks, leading staff meetings, whatever it is that you do, make that list over 2 or 3 weeks and then rank everything from 1 to 10. So 10, I absolutely love this. I would never want to give this away. This is my favorite thing to do. Of 1, like if I have to do this one more time, I quit. I work for myself and I quit. My boss hates me. She's evil. I quit. Okay. So, and then you get your average number. Okay. And you want to work overtime to make that average number. So add all the 1 to 10s up. And then start looking at everything that's like the bottom 4 or the bottom 5 or maybe the bottom 6. How can you eliminate those things? Okay. So how can I not have to take my dogs to the vet anymore? Do you have an executive assistant? If you don't, you'll definitely be wanting to watch one of our upcoming podcasts that I'm going to be interviewing my executive assistant. And I'm a little scared, but hearing about how it is to work with me. So that should be a little interesting. Or maybe it's that you cannot stand taking the trash to the street on Sunday nights or Monday mornings, and you just want to get your husband to do that. That's me. Yeah, that was me. That one was me. So, but whatever it is, just figuring out what kind of areas I need to delegate. So that was a really simple task, a simple way you can do it, but there are lots of ways that you can work on delegation. And maybe that's a topic that I'll dive into on a future episode. So stay tuned for that. So don't quit your day job right away. Be willing to take risk, build your team, and seek out support. Oh my goodness. Seek out support. You were not meant to go through this life alone. You were not meant to go through your business life alone. There are people who have been there and done it before us. There are mentors, there are coaches, there are people outside of your company. If you are turning around every time something is like strife comes your way or doesn't go the way you think it is, and you're venting to someone in your company, especially if you're the leader, you need to find someone else to vent to, because as soon as you vent to them about another staff member, it changes their perception of that staff member. Okay. I am a living proof and example of this. I used to come home and talk to my husband. I love my staff. My staff loves me, but there are times when we go like this, and I like that. I want my team to be like that because I want us to disagree because I think that makes us better. But that doesn't mean I still don't want to shake somebody sometimes. And I would come home and I would vent to my husband, who is now our company president, oversees all the operations. And I would see his behavior start to shift towards those people. And I'm like, oh no, what was a momentary madness for me started becoming like a relationship shifting event for him, because he loves me most. So he's going to start taking on my opinions of other people. And I was like, oh, I gotta watch this. I can't keep doing that. So having a business coach or a mentor, or maybe just a colleague that you worked with in another profession, or that that started a business or is leading a ministry, leading anywhere is so similar. And leading that team that you built is hard. It's hard work. Jesus's disciples were like teenagers, literally. Imagine how hard that was. But if he can do it, we can figure it out too. Leading people is one of the most joyous things I do, and it is also one of the most challenging and the most difficult, but worth it, you bet. So once you build that team and you've got people in place that are starting to do the thing, find some support for you, because the more you grow, the more you know, the more you will be able to pour back into those people. And that is where the goodness is. When you get to sit and watch your team take this vision, this idea that you had, and they start to bring it into life in their own way with their fingerprints on it. So it's not just Brooke's idea, it's now our idea. And Sally is executing it or Stan is taking off with it. And it may not be exactly how I wanted it to be. Get out of their way. They may do better than what you would have done. But as soon as you jump in there and stop them, you are now putting out doubt out there in front of them. You're now questioning what they're doing and you're dampening their creativity. And yes, it's going to cost you money when they make mistakes, but that's okay. Because once you get to a point where a couple $100, it's okay if they make a mistake because you just paid for their education in that mistake. Okay. So clearly, I think delegation and working with teams is going to be a future topic because I've got like another hour I could go on that one. So, from self-employed, from side gig to self-employed has been the best decision I have ever made in my entire life, besides marrying my amazing husband. And it is such a joy, but goodness gracious, isn't it a journey? It really has been. And so there's no difference in someone like me and someone like you who can take something that was once a dream and put it into reality. Until next time.
You've been listening to the Grit Crusade podcast with Brooke Plack. Our theme song is Thunder City by Lunar Ray, licensed through Soundstripe. This podcast was produced by Luminate Media Group. Thank you for listening, and we will see you on the next episode.